What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or if you're watching us on our growing YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew, we're here for another episode of our UNC football ISO series, which we've been running throughout the entire offseason. If you haven't seen those and you want to see the basketball ones we've been doing as well, head on over to our YouTube channel. You can find that below, and you'll see a playlist linked on the front. But before we dive into Ray Vahasik, who's going to be the focus of this edition, make sure you guys head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com after this video is done. Link in the description below, and sign up for just $8.33 a month. So much of what we do is premium, and if you want to access it, you got to be signed up for it. You also get access to our premium message boards, which is a huge perk of it as well. Get to interact with us, get some inside stuff that's going on in recruiting, and also get to interact with the other people that are a part of our awesome community at TarHeelIllustrated.com. So $8.33 a month. You can find that link in the description below. Head on over after the video is done and sign up. But AJ, we're here to talk about Ray Vohasek, so let's dive right into him, man. Started in all 11 games he appeared in on the defensive line last season, and obviously was there in 2019 as well, his sophomore campaign, where he appeared in 12 games as a defensive lineman as well. A guy that came in as a transfer, was a JUCO player. And we've gotten to cover him. We've talked about him a lot and some of the, things that he dealt with. I think the first time we talked to him when he was here in 2019, which was his first season at Carolina, he kind of talked to us a lot about how he had a shoulder injury in JUCO, and he was saying how, he hadn't really even been able to properly lift yet in his time at Carolina. And like I said, this was going back to 2019, and obviously had a little bit more of a bigger year last year in 2020, a little bit more of a prominent role, played a little bit more snaps for the Tar Heels, and showed a little bit more glimpses of what he can do on that defensive line. Now, going into this year, I think the expectations are pretty high with him. He's had those few years to bed in. He's had those few, a year at least in the weight room now, fully healthy, where he's been able to lift and get stronger. And like I said, I thought we saw some glimpses last year in particular of him making plays and just what exactly he can do and be on this team. So, AJ, I'll ask you this. Like I always do on these videos, what have been your thoughts on Ray Vohasek since he arrived in Chapel Hill a few years ago?
Remember this time a year ago, the biggest question mark people had about this team was the defensive lines. They lost Aaron Crawford and Jason Strobridge, who played basically every snap. So if they could just be average up front, this would be a pretty good football team. Well, Ray Vohasek was honorable mention all ACC last year. Pretty good, especially for a guy that people didn't know what they were going to get from him going into the season. A guy that was not recruited out of high school, a guy that went to DuPage College, which is a junior college up there in Illinois, where he's from, and actually played pretty well his first year up there, then had the injury, missed the whole 2018 season, and was being recruited by Carolina. Larry Fedora and his staff brought him in for an official visit, I think in October that year. And then, of course, there was the regime change, and I believe he narrowed it down to Carolina and Kansas. Mm-hmm. Like, he made a wise choice. Because
he did make a wise choice.
Kansas is everything that keeps coming out about Kansas and Les Miles and that stuff, and the fact that they're terrible, I would imagine this is a much better football experience for him. So last year he played 437 snaps, 29 tackles, 7 tackles for loss. I believe that was tied for the team lead, 3.5 sacks. PFF grade for the season was 66.3, which is very good for defensive linemen. 67.2 and 67.3 against Miami and Texas A&M respectively. So he's a reliable guy. We're doing a series of podcasts right now. We did Tamon Fox and Tyron Hopper, and we talked a lot about reliability and trust. Coaches don't have to worry. Well, that's the same thing with Ray Vohasek.
Yeah.
He's going to be prepared. He knows how to carry himself. He knows what to do, and he's a grinder. You stick him there in a 4-point stance, stick him in between a tackle and a guard, and he's going to make them work. He's not going to make every play, but he's going to occupy multiple blockers. He's going to fight guys off. He actually gets into the backfield and makes plays. Mm-hmm. I believe PFF had him for 16 stops last year. And the stop on the PFF grades is a play that results in a failure for the offense. So instead of just marking stuff as TFLs or whatever, a play that's a failure for the offense. 16 is pretty good for a guy who played 437 snaps. He had 9 quarterback hurries. He made quarterbacks move. He's pretty quick, plays low, and he's pretty quick. He's got good balance. Nobody knew what to expect when he came in, but I'll tell you what, he's making himself a guy who's going to be in a camp next year somewhere. Phil Steele has him as a third-team preseason All-American, first-team preseason All-ACC. It's Phil Steele. Phil Steele does this stuff 20 hours a day, 365 days a year. He just doesn't throw names against the wall and say, yeah, that sounds good. He really invests a lot into this. So when he's giving a player like Ray Vohasek, who only has, 600 and something snaps in his UNC career, giving him that kind of praise going into the season, I think that says a lot about how much Ray has progressed and how well he played a year ago and what the expectations are for this season.
Yeah, definitely. And one interesting thing about him too, which I learned about him from kind of looking into his high school career a little bit more, he actually played 6 different positions in high school. So you talk about a guy that's an athlete. Just wild. Played middle linebacker, defensive end, nose guard, offensive guard, fullback, and tight end. So just a guy that played all over the field. And even looking back at his JUCO career, he was rated as the #1 junior college player in Illinois during his time there as well. So, I mean, he's a guy that was a lot of people wanted him,
I bet he was as old school fullback as you can imagine, modern era of college or high school football. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that dude blocking ahead of some scat back? You run a counter play, and that's the fullback going through there to kick out a linebacker or something? Man.
Jeez. I'd like a freight train running at
Nobody uses fullback anymore, but he's just a football player. I remember talking to him, a couple of interviews with him when he was being recruited. He just wanted to play football.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not the most blessed guy. I'm not the most gifted guy. I don't have all this. I'm not that quick. I'm not that big. I'm not that whatever. I just want to play football, man. I just want to bang heads. I want to go out there and kick some tail. Mm-hmm. And that's what he does. I mean, when he walks by you, you're not thinking, oh, that guy's got NFL written all over. That guy's got all ACC written all over. At least you didn't when you first got to Carolina. You see it a little bit more now. But, sometimes to be really good, you don't have to fit the suit initially. But you kind of make your own suit and you make it work. And I think Vahasik's one of those guys.
Absolutely, yeah. I've enjoyed kind of covering him over the past couple of years because of the things he dealt with. Like I said, not even been a lift really during his first year at Carolina because of that shoulder injury. I mean, that's tough for a football player, especially on the defensive line.
How tough is it? What a grinder do you have to be where you can't lift because of an injury, but you're hitting on the field? And for those of you who never played, trust me, you're popping out there, especially when you're in the trenches. Mm-hmm. I remember what it was like in high school. I didn't play in college. And you can only imagine what it's like at the ACC level. That's a tough, going out there playing, even when he couldn't lift.
100%.
Now he is lifting. He's got everything working for him now. And that's one of the things, obviously, that Phil Steele saw in him.
Yeah, definitely. That alludes to the last thing I want to ask you on Ray before we wrap this one up. I mean, looking at those expectations from a guy like Phil Steele and putting him up there for a guy that, all ACC honors preseason and, expecting to have it after the season's done as well. I mean, what do you think his role is on this team? And do you think that's a realistic kind of goal for Ray Vahasik to get to?
I think the efficiency within the number of snaps he plays. Yeah. I mean, this time of year, guys said, I don't think he's a 50 snap guy because not a lot of guys are 50 snaps guys in the trenches, right? Mm-hmm. And he didn't play a ton of snaps in some of those games. He did play a lot though. I think the efficiency rating for him this year is going to be huge. He's going to be a tone setter up front. They have a lot of young guys, and we talked about how Taman and Tyrone are sort of that role in the hybrid spots. And I love to have to use the quotations with the hybrid because it's technically not a position, but we're still going to have fun.
You can thank Jay Bateman for that one.
Exactly. But we know what Ray's job is. His job is to be a tone setter. His job is to set a standard for Miles Murphy and for Javaria Ritzie and all that. Ritzie's going to be all over the place too, by the way. Mm-hmm. Keyshawn, all those guys up front, Clyde Pender, Jaleel Taylor, Tamari Fox, who's coming off an injury and didn't participate in the spring. Vahasik's the guy at the front of the line. He's the guy that says, okay, dudes, come on with me, and this is how we do it. Mm-hmm. And the defense didn't have a lot of that going into last season. They have more of that now. They have that pretty much everywhere. They have that. They have that defensive line. They have that at linebacker, outside linebacker, inside linebacker. They have that at corner. They have that at safety. There's a lot of that on defense now. And a good defense begins up front. So it's very important that Vahasik plays really well this year because that's where it begins. But he's also going to set the tone, not just for the guys up front, but for the whole defense. And he's certainly capable of it. He played well a year ago, 66.3. He gets that thing into the 70s. That's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many snaps he's going to get, but at 437 last year in 12 games, you do the math. Mm-hmm. He could certainly handle that load, maybe a little bit more this year. But they've got a lot of guys. I mean, they've already told us, Max already told us, Bateman's already told us they want to rotate 3 groups through there. They want to be able to use 8 to 10 guys up front, with a hand on the ground. Vahasik's the first one. Now, he may not ultimately be the best player from the group. Guys like Murphy have more upside probably. But it doesn't matter. It's about results, about performance. It's about who's the toughest you-know-what up front and who can read, who can react. And Ray Vohasek's got a lot of that going for him.
Definitely. Yeah, he's a I know I say I'm looking forward to seeing how a lot of these guys are come fall camp and next year, but I think he's a guy with the expectations, like you said, from Phil Steele. I mean, a lot of other people are seeing he has that upside. He's a guy I'm really interested to see what kind of year he has and just how good can he be for the Tar Heels? Because if you get an all ACC player out of Ray Vahasik, I mean, that defensive line play goes from here to here just because of that. I mean, you got a lot of talent, a lot of young guys down there, and some like we've talked about older heads at the hybrid positions. If you get Ray Vohasek playing at all ACC level, man, this defense just gets that much better. So, yeah, he could be a real big X factor for this team, and somebody, if he can reach that potential, could really change how this defense is viewed and how they perform on Saturdays. So, we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, I think Ray Vohasek's definitely a guy to keep an eye on this Carolina team, particularly on that defensive side of the ball going into this season. So, yeah, good place to wrap this one up, AJ. The Ray Vahasik edition of our UNC football ISO series. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to see the other videos we've been doing, including the basketball ISOs, you can find a playlist on the front of our YouTube channel profile. So just head on over there and head on over to our website, TarHeelIllustrated.com. Link in the description below. Sign up to be a premium member for just $8.33 a month. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. You guys know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know every time we upload. And we do upload a lot, especially in the off season. Got a ton of videos coming up every week. So if you want to know when they come out,
throughout the year, man.
All throughout the year. Not just the off season. We don't stop. Yeah, there's a ton going on right now, and there will continue to be a ton going on as the season gets underway. But hit that notification bell every time we upload. You will know. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.